as well as the handouts. And then there are additional postings on the project website at swlrt.org. And with that, I will turn it over to Elaine.
I hope you all have had a chance to look at the minutes from the last meeting. If there are any edits, can you please email them to John or Julianne, and we will make those changes. And next, we're going to move to the Green Line project updates. Green Line extension project.
So I'm not going to ask for any introductions as we go around. I think most of you know each other and work together quite often, but as you do speak and have a question, I think the first time if you just say your name and where you're from, that would be great for everybody who is fairly new in the room. And the next presentation will be by Nick Dial on the GLE project update.
Sure. All right. Like I said, my name is Nick Dial. I'm Deputy Project Director for Green Line Extension. Just showing a couple of progress updates over the last month or so. This is just showing our west and east vertical circulation towers. These are on both sides of Westlake, allowing pedestrians access from the street above down to the station platform below. Current activities, we've got our elevator subcontractor on site completing the elevators installation on both of the, or on the west side, and then we'll move to the east side. Next slide. Completed some platform wayfinding signage over at the Westlake Street Station platform itself. This is probably one of the last station activities for the platform, so we're nearing completion for the civil component for all 16 station platforms. And then this is looking inside the tunnel. So this is Westlake Street Station would be behind this photo, looking to the east. You can see cedar aisles in the background there, and this is just kind of showing our staging as we complete the tunnel construction. Since this photo has been taken, we've done our last pour for what's known as cell West 15, and that leaves us with 2 cells remaining for structural completion of the tunnel. Before we can bring in our rail crew, we need to do some completion of the concrete on both sides of the tunnel as we enter into the tunnel. These are called the boat section retaining walls. So this is just showing labor doing some wall grinding before we get it ready for painting in the spring. So this is just another shot showing inside the tunnel. So you got supportive excavation through the middle of this photo. You can see at the bottom the yellow struts between the wall section. That's the interior wall and then the exterior wall. And then those big struts that kind of split they go from wall to wall. And then you've got the waterproofing side on the right section of that. So that's just showing that waterproofing installation. So before we can bring the formwork into the tunnel, that waterproofing needs to be installed. So this is just showing some of that formwork progression in what's cell West 13. So just moving some of our formwork into place so that we can complete the rebar installation and get ready for concrete pouring. And as previously stated, here's our roof rebar crews up on the tunnel completing some of that rebar installation. And then just showing some storage up on top of a completed roof section. All right, so now jumping outside of the tunnel section, this is at West 21st Street looking to the east. This is just showing just a general ballasted track section shot. So you got ballasted track on both sides, and we've got our express trough in the middle there, and then some OCS pole foundations. This is a shot from above where the pedestrian drop-off would be over adjacent to Penn off Bryn Mawr. So pedestrians will be dropped off here, cross that pedestrian bridge, and then either take an elevator or the stairs for that vertical circulation tower down to the platform site. We worked with Brian and our contractor to getting skeletonized track section from Bryn Mawr to 21st Street, which allows our follow-on contractor, APJB, to start their work from Target Field to Bryn Mawr, and then have an access point through Bryn Mawr to 21st Street Station, or 21st Street. So this is just showing a shot over at one of our remaining site activities that will mostly resume in the spring because we're in some deep frost right now. So this is at Bassett Creek Valley Station, just showing what that what the curb and gutter installation looks like. That's it for us.
Thank you, Nick. Any questions for Nick? Hearing none, we next have consent business, and we have the DVE report that was sent out for review for this meeting that are in your handout. So I'll turn it over to John and he'll cover the DVE achievements.
All right, well, thank you, everybody. So, yeah, we have the reports that are in the handouts, and then the materials will also be included or uploaded online as well. And something to note here is we added Shaw Lundquist to the table here, and we got the first payout out and then paid out. It's mobilization, so there wasn't any DDE participation in that. But yeah, we look forward to the next time we show the table again. There should be some DDE participation on there.
I believe actually we've paid $180,000 to Pete's Water and Sewer.
Okay. So this is probably December 31st, so it doesn't show.
Oh, okay.
So, yep. But the participation, we're continuing to monitor, and as the work winds down, then yeah, we'll get closer to what the actual numbers will be. But any questions on the numbers? All right.
No questions. We're going to move on to the non-consent business. Thank you, John. So we'll start with Civil Systems and Hopkins Rail Support Facility. And Krista's going to be presenting the DBE and workforce activities for the civil contract. And although we're here in person, I believe it is streamed online. So again, if you could introduce yourself fully, that would be great.
Great. Thank you, guys. So as she said, I'm Krista Seberg. I'm the diversity representative for the London CS McCrossin joint venture. And for DBEs, as we discussed a little bit ago, with the frigid weather and it being the winter season, right now our DBEs are very few. We have E&J Rebar doing a little bit of work, Gunner Electric, and safety signs. That was for last month. So participation is low right now, but lots coming up. So if you could go to the next slide, please. This is a slide you guys have seen the last two previous DWAC meetings. And as stated the last one, there has been no change in our tracking of closeout of DVEs. Many of them are still going to be active because of punch list items, closeout, and different things like that. So as of right now, no change from the last time, but there is a handout of the report that you will be able to see throughout now and the end of the project. Any questions about where we are with our DDEs and closeout right now? If not, we continue forward.
The handout has some colors on there. I'm not sure what the colors mean.
There was a key to it that must have gotten. I will make sure that that has it, but if you note the comments, the green is, Brian, could you, I don't have one with me.
They're completed.
Yeah, so green is complete with potential work. Red were ones that were removed at some point in the project per everybody's conversations at previous DWAC meetings. And then blue, there were some scope change work on the project. Those are the color coding. Thank you. All right, so workforce participation for the civil contract project to date, we have just under 4 million hours of workforce hours since the start of the project in 2019. Project to date, we're at 23% POCI total, female 6%. Project workforce for January, the numbers were very low, 5,000 hours, 25% POCI participation, and 3.25% participation for female. But what we're going to be going into next is a breakdown of the trades on the project, because that's when you're really going to see a difference in that participation. So this is going to be the graphs you're going to see over the next couple of slides are going to be the 2024 at a glance workforce participation. This one right here is female participation. As we all know, the goal is 20% female participation. So that is the orange line at the very top of the graph. As you see, our female participation at height of the season was at 6%. That is all trades working together. It is way below the goal for this project and the goal for our state. And we've talked about this at many of our DWAC meetings and other meetings regarding this. This is where our good faith efforts really come into play as what we're doing to help move things forward with not just recruitment, but the retention of our key individuals that we have working on our projects. So there's the female participation. If there's no questions, I'd like to move forward to the next slide, which is the POCI, and we're going to dive in a little deeper with this. Here's the POCI participation for 2024. Again, the goal for that is 32%, and as you can see, it's the green dotted line going across. And you see the activity of this is all of our trades combined. And you can see the dips and the heights. Those are during the key times. The dip in June, July had a little bit to do. We had some pretty good rain days, rain weeks, I should say, where our participation was a little bit less. But now let's go into the breakout of the different trades. We had some key trades that really show the wow of what is truly happening in our industry right now. The first one here are the carpenters. For 2024, our carpenters to date had just under 36% participation, exceeding the state's 32% goal for projects. Take a look, it goes from January to December of 2024. September is when we had kind of it was about a week kind of shutdown because of the weather conditions and schedule. So that's the only reason why there's a dip down to 25, just under 26%. Otherwise, carpenters, which have high numbers, great job. Great job on our carpenters. If we could go to the next slide, please. Here are our cement masons. And you see some pretty big gap, up and down. Does anybody know why cement masons would have such high fluctuation? And I'm not asking our trade. Yes?
The weather, because in the cold weather, can't pour cement.
That's part of the reason why, yes. Thank you so much, Tyrone. The other reason, guess what? The schedule. We don't have pour schedule. We didn't have pours happening at that time. So the cement masons, which consisted of Lunda and North Country Concrete, were on other projects at that time. We didn't have participation, or we had little participation. That is the only reason why there are dips in the schedule for our cement masons. Otherwise, take a look at their height. Almost 52% during our major pours on our project were POCI. And the only reason why the dip in the fall is exactly what Tyrone said. We didn't have the work going on there. There weren't pours happening. There aren't pours right now. Shocker, So anyways, there's our cement masons. Let's go to the next. Look at our laborers. Look at our laborers, you guys. 32% goal. Last year, they were at 34% total participation. 34% participation with our laborers on this project, exceeding our goal. Next slide, please. Painters. Painters have one of the lowest amount of hours on the light rail project because where are they painting? Anybody know besides our team here?
Platform.
They're painting at the stations, right? So we have 14 stations, correct? Not a lot of work, but when they are there, look at the numbers. There's 4 dips in the numbers, okay? You see them there. 4 dips. One of them is lower because of the numbers, the 27%. The other 3 are 0 because they didn't have painting on the project. Otherwise, they're exceeding by quite a bit. Yes, Ty?
Yeah, what's the painting schedule on in terms of cycle? When do you repaint? How often do you repaint a station, or is a repaint
It's on
cycle?
right now, the painting is quote unquote done except for punch list items where they'd have to come back and do cleanup.
Okay.
That is it.
Or graffiti.
Yeah, or graffiti. Thank you, Michael. Very much. Otherwise, you guys seriously take a look at, in Rainbow Contracting is our painter on site. Their participation, yes, the hours are low, but their crews, kudos to the painters. Great job. Okay, next slide. And I do believe this is our last. Yes, pile drivers. The noisy ones on our site, you guys, the boom booms, you know. Take a look. This is a growing trade. Growing in their participation and growing great. Again, the only reason for the major dips is there was not a lot of pile driving needed at that time happening. But again, during the busy season, later summer, early fall, exceeded participation goals. The work that our crew, and again, the pile drivers they're Londa LMJB. The work that we are doing with our union halls, with their training centers, with their business reps and everybody, above and beyond expectations. Any questions?
Yeah, I think it would have been good if you had also done the breakdown in these trades for the women. Because I know you're highlighting the POCI, but it would be beneficial to know where the women were doing that, also.
They're in the actual number reports that everybody can see. This was something new that we threw out there. So next month, if you guys would like, I will do a breakdown of the 2020. And I also did not include 8 other trades, So we'll highlight all the trades for both POCI and female participation.
That would be good.
No problem. We'll
Thank
find
you.
somebody.
Somebody who
has no time on their, I'm just kidding. No, it'll be great. The other thing that you will see next month is a to-date quarterly, what the participation is overall. Not breakdown by trade, because that's a lot of time. But anyways.
You mean for the quarter or from start of project?
From the start of the project to now.
To the end of the quarter.
To the end of 2024, what the participation is. I showed it last year in March. I will be doing it again this year. Yeah. So it'll be some nice graphics to be able to visually see and understand, but it's being able to talk about things and understanding it. The great thing is we really wanted to show over the last couple of them with the carpenters, the laborers especially, is the retention of individuals during the winter time. That was so key, is to see who that core team is that's being kept during winter layoff. If you look 5 years ago at our numbers compared to our numbers now, that core team picture has changed.
Has this project been going on for 5 years?
More than that. I started 5 years ago and it was already 3 years into it. So do the math on that one. You know? So anyways, it's great participation. The changes from our first light rail project, which Tracy and I both, you know, compared to now, wow, what a difference. And it's great to be a part of all of that. So there's the numbers, but now going to the next slide, we'll go into the outreach. And I did include a few things, and I want to say something about those numbers. We have Rick Mardigan in the room for those that are streaming this. Rick Mardigan, Executive Director for Building Strong Communities, one of our key partners on our project. It's great to have some individuals from graduating previous classes that are part of those numbers. And we look forward to this upcoming year. I don't have a listing, but like you guys have heard in the years past, our key partners for our good faith efforts, our community-based organizations, our Building Strong Communities, Lake Street Works, Junior Achievement, Summit Academy, and others, Goodwill Easter Seals and everything, but it's great to have the partners that we do. Our project is not going to see a lot of incoming new participation because we are in the final length of the project, but that doesn't mean our outreach efforts are stopping because we can help our other projects connect, our subcontractors connect, and educate people on this project and the great different things that took place on the project. One of the big things we do have coming up that the internal team has heard about is what's on the screen right now. In 2 weeks, it is the Women in Construction Week, which is a national celebration of women in construction. It is our honor to be hosting our 4th annual Women in Construction Week, Rosies and Robbies of the Rail Roundtable, which this year's topic, each one has been a very important mental health, retention, recruitment piece in our industry. This one is Don't Stop Believing. Who sings it, guys? Who knows? Thank you very much. Don't stop believing. Where women have been, where women are today, and where women can go for the future. And stopping is not an option. So it is going to be, and it's for both men and women, always has been, but the focus is where have women been in the industry and where are we going? Where can they go? It's providing both small businesses and individuals, both in the field and in the office, opportunity to discuss about potentials. What do they want to do? What are the resources and how do they get there? What's great this year, I have the honor to tell you all that Barb Lau, Executive Director of the Association of Women Contractors, is going to be our joint presenter for this event, along with Erin McCrossan from CS McCrossan, myself, and Tracy Jackson from Lunda are the leads for this. There is room for 60 people to register online for this. We do have the flyer that was given. We can make more copies, but anyways, registration is open to 60. We're half full already. So I suggest you get your registration in there. It's going to be dynamic. And we do have free box lunch being provided by WinTC. Who knows what WinTC is?
Anybody who reads the flyer?
You're my rock star, Dan. WinTC is the Women in NECA, the National Electrical Contractors Association Minnesota chapter, has reached out to us wanting to be a part of this great event, and they're sponsoring our lunch. So if there's any other questions regarding it, otherwise this is going to be dynamic. We will have information regarding federal current things and just that whole conversation of what could be the future.
Does anyone have any questions for Krista? Thank you, Krista.
Thanks, Elaine.
So now we're going to turn to APJV, the systems contractor.
Okay, Mike with the APJV. So I was talking to the team this morning. APJV, we expect to hold steady about 8,000 craft labor hours per month. You know, in November, we're going to turn it over for testing where we bring in actual trains and run it on the track for 330 days. So there won't be a whole lot of new train work going on for 330 days through 2026. You know, we turn over the project. The expected end date is in the spring of 27. So 2026 is going to be a lot of rail testing, making sure that the brain's positive train control, where the train's supposed to be and all that kind of stuff. So the hours are going to dip after 2025. So through now in November, you know, it's going to be pretty consistent with what we're holding. We're holding steady. I mean, overall, the project took about 140,000 hours to date, 22 and a half plus or minus POCI, 10-11% women participation on the job. But there's going to be less hours, less all that kind of stuff going forward. But we expect to hold about 8,000 hours through 2025. Probably starting in April. We'll have some civil scope in maybe June or July, and we'll start dropping off in September probably. But the electricians, we were at a peak of about 25, employees for Premier and about 13 for Aldridge. That's probably going to be a little less this year. We might get as high as maybe 16 electricians to 18 electricians for Premier, and Aldridge might hire another OCS person. So it's going to be the hours are not going to be great. So we had, we winded down November, December. That's where we stood. Next slide, please. And that's just a breakdown of the hours. And, electricians and operators, they make up about 80% of our workforce. So we expect that to continue, and that's where our focus is as far as outreach goes. But it's at 25 and 7. One of our electricians decided to move to Texas for some reason. I was ashamed to lose Shannon. She'd been with us since the beginning of the project. So, move forward. Next slide, please. That was November, December, consistent with what we were doing. So these are the DBEs that worked on the site. We had Gunner, MPE, Elite, Stonebrook, Safety Signs, and Moltron Builders. And some of that was in November where they were wrapping up. I might have missed certified payrolls. But pretty much they were adding hours and we got caught up during that time period. So those are people who worked on the job or reported hours in the LCP tracker. So, January drops off a lot, but that's who were there, November, December. Next slide. That's it. Are there any questions for the system?
That's my question. Go ahead.
I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yes, thank you, Mike. Does anyone have any questions for Mike? Okay, we will now hear from Shaw Lundquist. Connie?
Hi, I'm Connie Doman. Those are currently the listed DBEs that will be on our project, the rail support facility building. Next slide. Here's a couple pictures of our DBE subcontractor, Gunner Electric, hooking up temporary electrical service. Next slide. Next slide, current workforce participation. So the goals of the project, obviously 32 and 20%. We finalized our numbers at 22% POCI and 13% female, and currently we're at 15% POCI and 6% female. There hasn't been a lot of work on the project. I don't think there was any work on the project over the month of December by any, we've been waiting for steel. There's been a delay in that. So next slide, please. Distribution of diversity hours by race. So there was 1,300 hours white males, 160 hours African American, 61.5 Hispanic, and 18 Asian. Next slide. Distribution of female versus male. Obviously quite a big number for male, 1,513, and then 98, 51 for female. Next slide. Here's an overall of the trades that have been on the site. Quite a bit high number for equipment operators, followed by laborers and then truck drivers. You can see the numbers there that we're at, what I stated before, at the 15% POCI and 6% female. Next slide. Just project updates that we hadn't been on site since 12/23/24. We will be starting on around the 25th of March, starting on the ground thaw, and closer to the end of the month at the 31st, we should be starting footings for the building. That's it.
Thank you, Connie. Does anyone have any questions for Connie?
I had a question. So seeing as we're in the early part of the year, there might be, the spring thaw and construction is going to start up again. Are there any opportunities for people to get on to the jobs? And if there are opportunities, how would a person get on or be able to join the work?
For our company specifically?
I guess this is going out to all the contractors.
Well, every month I send out a workforce reminder email, which states what the project's goals are and where we currently are at with our goals, asking for them to be mindful of their commitment at the beginning of the project. And then I also provide a handout or an attachment which gives several community organizations that they can do some hiring through if they need to outside of their union. Building strong communities being one of them. So that's what we do.
So John, to answer for ours for the civil, when meeting with our team at Lunda, and I'd have to check with Aaron too, but for Lunda total, bringing in new opportunity, we're looking at 4 to 6 total for all of our projects. We're bringing back people that have been laid off for season stuff, but when it comes to sponsoring new apprentices across the board for Lunda, we're looking at 4 to 6. And I really have my fingers and toes crossed that 2 of those could be at least start at the light rail, but it all depends on our schedule.
Yeah, for the APJV, the subs, we depend on our subs, so all the subs working on the jobs are going to be doing it. And it's available, registered with the unions through the normal channels. The calls will be made into the unions that they don't have that current workforce to handle it. Like I say, I don't expect a tremendous amount of hires, but these contractors are local and they are working in the area, and get on them.
What about you, Aaron?
Yeah. So much what Chris said here too. So we're probably just because it's still a few weeks till it thaws, and the season's kind of busy right now. We're still trying to project how much work we're going to have for the whole year. But usually we do our rehires. Probably 90-95% of our workforce is laid off right now. We'll see how many of them we can hopefully bring back, and that lets us know then how many new opportunities we have for how much work we have new that's available, and then how many people we need to replace or how many new positions that we have available. So similar to Krista, it's probably around the less than 10 number, but if we get a big job, then that might change, and then folks can transfer from job to job. But we're still, if I'm being honest, probably a few weeks to a month out to knowing how many folks we can bring on once we actually get the work going and we get this done.
Any other questions?
No questions. We're going to open it up for committee discussion, and I understand the first item is to look at the schedule for the remainder of 2025. And so it appears that several of the upcoming meetings conflict with the events going on around town or holidays. And so there have been options, I understand, to discuss moving the meeting up 1 week, back 1 week, or pushing the meeting out a month and starting the schedule over. And so who wants to jump in and start the discussion?
It's towards the end of the schedule up there, but the one date that I had brought up, you guys, was the October 16th meeting. And I don't think, and I brought it up at our DWAC prep meeting, I don't think it needs to be moved, but I think it could be a part of the conflict. It is Construction Inclusion Week that week. It is the Thursday of it. It is an in-person meeting, and I would like to put out to the committee that we still move forward with it and base it around, some things with Construction Inclusion Week. And I would like to ask that it be in person at the LMJB offices, like we have had a couple in the past. So that way, it's the end of our big season of the entire project. It would be a great time with the theme of Construction Inclusion Week to give a really good picture of what has taken place on our project. So that would be my ask, to keep that date, but have, the focus be about the work that has been done with construction inclusion. And I was told to bring it to the table for this, for a decision.
Krista, we'll take conversation about any of the other remaining dates, and then I'll be asking for someone to make a motion at some point for changing the schedule. So anyone else have thoughts about dates? In particular, our next meeting for April?
Yeah, that's a meeting that's virtual. And I don't understand why it needs to be moved if it's a virtual meeting and SATBOC generally is done by the time, this meeting is scheduled to start. So I'm just curious as to why that one would need to be moved. I don't even know who brought this up, so I'm looking around.
I think the big one is June 19th, right?
That's the
a
one
holiday,
that
so
is,
that counts. So that one's got to be moved.
it's a holiday, it's a big holiday for us.
I think SABBOC was probably brought up because maybe Barb's attending or some of the members might be attending.
And I'm not certain who's there, but usually if you're engaged in conversation, it's a all-on-deck, in-person kind of event, and you're spending time preparing for that. The transition to a computer to be able to have a space to be quiet and present for a virtual meeting might be an issue.
And that goes until 3 p.m. Unless we use, is it at the Heritage Center again?
I believe so.
The question, it could be, because depending on who is in attendance, because it is, the government has the different tables, as does the AWC and some of the contractors, maybe with it being ending at 3 o'clock, if at 2 o'clock, they could go to one of those separate rooms possibly for a solution for virtual, if the date isn't moved.
So what's the proposed date?
I didn't propose a different date, I proposed a solution of that date.
I guess the first, I think to move it along, are there any concerns about moving a date 1 week before April or 1 week, April 17th, or 1 week after April 17th?
I think if we're moving it after would be better, because if you move it before, then there might be some issues with the workforce reporting for some of the contractors here.
Thank you, Jim.
And if so, we can either decide on moving it after April 17th or moving it to May and just having back-to-back with one virtual in May and then in person, or moving that date around in June. Any thoughts about that?
I'd be okay moving it to May or a week after. Either one.
I think that would work.
So that would be April 24th. Or
either April 24th or what date might it be in May? Because I know we start to get to another holiday, but.
The 22nd. Oh, no, it would be the 15th. So far, we've got two options for the April 17th virtual meeting. One being to move it out to April 24th, or to move it to May 15th. And then we have a proposal for the October meeting to be in person at LMJB office to be a part of and inclusive of the event that's taking place. Any thoughts about June? Elaine, you have a question? Yeah, April, the third week is the 17th. Oh, that's the one we were talking about moving. Never mind. I apologize.
June meeting, any thoughts? Kind of the same, well, it's in person, so.
I had suggested previously moving it the day before, but John pointed out that there's a council meeting that day. So what about moving into the 26th? Is there any conflict with Met Council meetings?
It's a Thursday, so there aren't any, I'm presuming it's a Thursday. And so
It is a
there aren't
Thursday.
Major council meetings that occur on that day. So we have the same option. We either move the June meeting out a week. It is in person, or we could move it into July. And then you have again back-to-back meetings in July. And I see it's like, you don't want to spend your summer in an in-person meeting in July.
I like keeping the every other because of the reporting, you know. And July is it's busy month, but it's also, holiday month. So it really makes the schedule when people are back in the office or on the site very crazy. So that's just our.
It's an in-person meeting. I don't want to be out in the heat.
So June 26th sounds like, by those who've spoken, like a good option, hearing no particular conflicts around it. And then we have December. I don't hear any concerns about August and December. Anyone want to raise any at this time? No. All right, and so we would need, well, getting back to April, I don't see that there's a preference either way. I'm not hearing one. And so if we keep it in April, keep the reporting a little consistent and do it for April 24th, we would need a motion that includes moving the April 17th virtual meeting to April 24th, moving the June 19th meeting to June 26th in person, keeping August, moving October 16th meeting to, setting at a particular location of LMJB, and because it will be in person, and then keeping December 18th virtual.
I want to make a motion that we postpone the October 16th or keep that a separate. But can I move the motion?
I think we need a member to move and
Yeah.
put out a proposal, and then we can have a discussion and any amendments if need be.
There's no members here.
So Jan is.
Who
would you like to?
Huh?
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
the only member.
Is that true? Okay.
You don't have a
Yeah,
second.
move it as stated.
Second, no vote.
We could do a legislative thing. There's no quorum.
I propose we move it back a week for April and June.
Oh, this
Can't
is like
do that.
Donald
You're not a
Trump.
board member.
We'll be the
You're not a
committee of
member.
water.
And so-
Committee one.
Did you say that you can second? I'm not clear on who.
I'm not part of the committee.
Okay, okay.
You remember? You were the
Just Dan and I are gonna vote.
Favor?
Say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
I lost half my power.
I believe Elaine had an amendment regarding October, right? Elaine?
Could you explain why you would want to keep it as two separate and where that location might be?
Yeah, because October 16th is quite, my concern is that the ones that are the closest are the ones that are the most concerned. I think we can discuss the October 16th meeting at the next meeting, simply because we don't know what's on our calendars. I don't know. I don't have access to the calendar for the 16th of October.
It was already scheduled.
So what,
No, but what I'm saying is that you're proposing to move it.
No,
so can I ask where their location is? Is it the office of Melvin Station?
She's asked
It's
you-
in Timbuktu.
no, she's
hey,
asked you to
everybody,
close-
this
close
is a
the
state
mouth.
project, and guess what? Before COVID, we traveled all over the state for meetings, so
So where would that location?
it's Hopkins.
And so. And so the only reason I'm hearing you, Elaine, is that it's farther out. And so right now we're discussing business of the committee, and if we can make decisions in one fell swoop, I think that would be preferable so people can plan. And then even if it is in Hopkins, we've got another 6 months or so, not really counting in my head right now,
That's
to be able
fine.
to plan ahead.
That's fine.
And so hearing the motion as it's stated and second, and hearing the ayes in favor, we are looking at moving, as stated, April 24th will be the next meeting virtually. In person, June 26th, August 21st stays, October 16th in person at the LMJV office, and the agenda and schedule will be discussed and prepared for that meeting. And then December 18th will stay the same in virtual meeting.
There's only two of you that can vote.
So we're voting.
Oh, should I?
And then hearing how quick you are in making decisions around the business, you'll have more members next time.
Close it, now you gotta vote on it.
All right, and so,
There you go. That's a good start.
what's that?
Aye.
Aye.
See, there you go.
I'll vote twice.
You bet. Dan.
All right.
You just want to sound like a pirate.
Aye. All right.
Thank you, everyone, for weighing in and for your input. And so we have our next item for discussion, which is prompt payment. John is going to start that discussion of John Chow of presenting the data regarding the duration of the payment process for pay application from the initial pencil copy to the moment payment is issued to the prime contractor. And so, well, John, move forward with that.
All right, thank you. So, yeah, as we start this discussion, I wanted to provide some context for the discussion. I believe about 2 years ago, we talked about pay cycle and how long it takes to process a pay app. And then in our previous meeting, Ashanti had asked the question about, has there been any improvement? And then if there hasn't, any ideas on how to improve things. So I collected the data from our eBuilder database, and then I put them into some slides. So then it could inform us in this conversation. And then a little bit of a background is that I broke the data off into two different sections. The pencil copy, that's when the prime contractor submits a draft of the payment application. So we call it the pencil copy. And then once that is agreed upon by the council staff and the contractor, then it moves into a payment application for the council to review. And then once we review it for DD participation, prevailing wages, and other various factors, we process it and we wire the check out to the prime contractors, and then from there on out, the prime contractors are responsible for paying their subs going down the line. So from looking at that, the systems, I'm going to start off with the systems contract. So we're looking at the shortest amount of time, the maximum amount of time, and the average amount of time. And this is going from pay app 1 all the way to 63 is the where we put the cutoff, and then the amount of days going in the other direction. So if you're looking at this, the pencil copy is in blue, and then the council review process is in orange. And for the systems contract, it's pencil copy is pretty short. Shortest day being 1, and then longest being 16. So that one, I thought that it moved through pretty well. And then for the council side of things, it looks like we're taking longer and earlier on in the process. It did take the council longer to review the payment applications, but I think over time we've gotten better at it. Those bars are shrinking towards the end there, so I'm hoping that we continue to in that trend of being quicker to review things. I think one of the things that we have to consider is if there is a lot of change orders that are involved within a payment application, that may make the pencil copy take longer. So moving on to the next slide. For the civil contract, this one is much more different in the amount of time it takes to review a pencil copy. And earlier on, I think second pay app, I think that was probably like mobilization, where it was quickly processed. And then as we continue along, there's been some spikes in there of various instances where it takes a long time for a pencil copy to be approved. But once we get past the pencil copy, we, I think, have shared before that we try to prioritize it and make that council review process as short as possible. And I did not include anything for the Hopkins Rail Support Facility because we're on just pay app number 1. But yeah, so any questions on the tables that or charts that we shared? Okay. And then I'll yield it over.
Great. So when we had our prep meeting about this, we had the discussion about what we were going to be presenting today. When it comes to actually showing a report or numbers from when we receive payment from council to when we pay it, which is 10 days, that's in our contract, to when our first year sub pays the second, third, and that, what that report looks like, that is data that we do not have at our fingertips. We do have our DVE report that we do give at every DWAC meeting. It does show dates and stuff like that, but when it comes to the when we receive on, and those are meetings that Nick and them have with our team, regarding pay app and change orders and all that other fun stuff. So I did want to bring clarity to our team here, though, regarding the questions that were asked. So our first tier DVEs being paid within 10 days of us receiving our payment, absolutely. And actually, many times, the DVEs have already been prepaid by LMJV. Depending, again, it's a case-by-case situation, but more often than not, the DVE is already paid. How long does it take for second and third tier subs to receive payment from our first tier subs? Their contract language is a paid when get paid situation. And depending on that first tier sub, and I'll give an example of Egan, their process is a lot like ours, is prepaid, that situation, so that the DVEs can continue forward so that they can afford the day-to-day situations. And we do have examples of that, but that is our prompt payment process on this project.
Well, Krista, I know that it's in the contract that you're supposed to pay your subs within 10 days of you getting payment. But if you can't verify it,
We have that. I mean, that's a part of the DD, that's a part of
you said you didn't have a report or you
the
can't-
report that we were asked for at our DWAC prep meeting included that second and third tier, that continual information.
Okay.
We don't track. When we pay our first tier subs, we're done. We've paid. Then it's that next person. If they have a problem and an issue, it would be brought to our attention.
Okay.
We would have that info, but we don't track. We don't have an Excel spreadsheet, you know, or a spreadsheet that tracks dollar values, dates, and all that from those points forward. That's what I meant by that.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
what I'm hearing is, what I saw in the minutes was that the data was requested and the response was that you could get that data pretty quickly. But what I'm hearing today is that you have data up to a certain point and you don't have a system of record keeping of the full scope of payments throughout a project or process that you have ownership of.
For the, as it trickles down, no. Can that information be pulled forward? Yes. Regarding data, this is data. This is information of our payment process. That was what we were asked for. Mike, Tony, and Connie and I with the discussion. To pull together numbers, give us a couple months and we could probably compile that information through our team. Brian, what do you have to?
Yeah, we have to reach out to all our subcontractors and have them pull when they issue checks to all their third tiers.
The other thing that was great about that conversation
Chasing
was,
right down the line.
sorry, Brian.
Can I find it? So the organizational response is that you don't track that internally as a business process, but you could pull it together for purpose of.
Are they required to provide that?
No.
And some of them can say yes, some can say we're too busy.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. The other thing too, the question was asked, and we had a really nice conversation, I think, about transparency. You know, transparency, one of the questions we had asked, Mike had actually posed the question, is who brought, is there a problem, is a DBE having a problem with that? Because we want to make sure that that is being taken care of. Because as we've stated, our process, and I'm really proud to be a part of the process with London and CS McCrossin, is that prepayment part. I haven't seen that in very many other general contractors over the last 20 years. So to track at the trickle down, that would have to be pulled together. We do utilize the system that is the Met Council system for payment tracking, just like we use LCP Tracker to track certified payroll. You know, there is those utilized tools that are out there to be able to pull those information. But so we are transparent. We want to be transparent. We can provide a list of contractors we've prepaid also, but this is not something that is contractually been required. But the question that I was surprised by is we were told that DBEs have complained about it. Our concern is what DBEs have complained about it because we want to make sure we are working with them to make sure that it's being taken care of because we take this very serious. That's why when you see, and again, I love talking about first light rail to this one. First light rail, we didn't exceed DBE goals. We weren't even close to it. And to actually have a team that is exceeding DBE participation is great. And it's because of the processes that are in place by these contractors.
So I just want to say this. When the discussion several months ago, meetings ago, came up about the prompt payment, this was part of the discussion, not just what Met Council's process was and their schedule, but that we also wanted to know the contractors' processes and schedules. So it shouldn't have come as a surprise that the question came up. I wasn't at DWAC, but I did hear that it did come up and there was concern about that.
No surprise.
Doesn't that slide answer the
That,
question?
yeah.
I mean,
We were
it's a
asked about our
contractual
process.
obligation, and that's what we propose.
I wasn't addressing that. I was addressing what she was saying, that it came as a surprise.
Well, I'll speak for the last Wednesday meeting. I was surprised when it came up last Wednesday. We're
Again.
talking about prompt payment. I thought we were done with it.
That was the surprise.
Okay. Okay, now they
Thank
wanted
you, Mike.
additional information. You know, and they wanted the dollars of proof that we paid them within 10 days. I said, well, what's your proof that you paid them within 10 days? I think that's a review process, and I think that's in B2G, as I said, in the trailing waivers, and I asked our team for the systems teams. With every pay app, we enter a prompt payment certification saying that you paid your subcontractors within 10 days.
Right.
And I believe we complete a form and we send it in with their pencil copy. And I got a list of, you know, I said we haven't had any, but recently we've had one with Siemens Mobility. We've had 2 instances where they didn't supply their waiver on time, so we couldn't release payment. And the other one was a bond reduction to WABTech. And those are not DBE firms. But it was a retention reduction. They didn't provide a proof of bond waiver reduction. We had to delay payment. So every time that we issue a pay app, we say, have you paid your subcontractors within 10 days? Now, APJB, Mark is very OCD. And he has a spreadsheet. He said, clean it up for me. It'll prove that when did we cut the check? I said, well, how does that tie to a pay app? Oh, I got to add a column for when the pay app. Because here's the date of the invoice. Here's the date we paid. There's the date that we cut a check. Here's the day the check cleared the bank. But it doesn't have the pay app, so how do you tie it to that when we got paid and what exactly pay app is? Because it may have not gotten on that pay app to begin with, because we got a cost-loaded schedule. They agreed to it, that pencil copy. If they get on that pay app, they're going to be, when Alders get paid, APJB gets paid, they're going to be paid in 10 days. And I have not heard any complaints from DBEs other than the extension of time question. Because they would say, we didn't get paid this month. We didn't get paid $1 million. We got paid $1.2 million. So they didn't sign the certification because they didn't understand the extension of time. Now we're breaking that out, deducting that from the payment. That got sorted out. I think they signed off on that.
Yeah, I think if you're needing the day that the check gets cut, I think I can work with you to get that together. And
well, we need to know what pay app it's on. We know the date of the invoice. We need to know what pay app it was on. Okay, when did we get paid? I have that. So Mark has all the information. He just needs to add a column. So when did that include in the pay app, and what pay app was that payment on? That's what I was missing. But otherwise, everybody's been paid within 10 days.
Yeah. I mean, from
so I don't know, you know, so I was surprised. We say, well, we don't want proof of it. Well, okay. You know, I think that's a specific individual question. I don't think that's a topic for this meeting. If there's concerns about it, we're happy to address it. We'll look at it on an individual basis. But APJB takes pride, our management team takes pride paying our DB stuff within 10 days.
Yeah, I think when we put out the question initially, it was in response to that chart, right? We want to provide a whole picture. If we're talking about payment, you know, we want to know from the start, and we're only giving part of the story by being able to look at eBuilder for what happens on the council side, but then for transparency, we wanted to make sure that we're following this all the way through to when the subcontractors get paid, because when we're talking about prompt payment, it flows all the way down.
Right.
So that's why we're asking for the data, just so that, and it's not necessarily pointing fingers at anybody. We're just looking at, all right, if somebody's not getting paid, or if they're taking longer to get paid, let's talk about, you know, how do we improve the process? If you guys are doing great things like paying your subs early, and then your subs are also paying their subs early, that's a great thing. Let's, you know, document that and let's share that as a practice. Maybe we can make that as a practice that is, you know, used on other projects. But, you know, without the data, then we can't really point to anything to say, all right, this is where we are at, so that we can know where to go.
I think it would make sense that if we have an individual instance where there's an issue, to dig into that, right? But the absence of that, I think you're just looking for a needle in a haystack that may not be there, right? Like, I don't see the point of spending a lot of time on.
Well, I think, and I haven't been doing the work as long as you guys have been, but I think contractually, if what was in the spec is being followed right now, that this might be something that should be started on the next project and from the beginning, so that it's not so much backtracking. And you know, if we know up front what's expected, that you want this down to the second, third sub. For somebody like Lunda that's been on the project for 5 years to go back, somebody's got to do that work. And it's, I don't know a lot of people that would have that much time on their hands to be able to do that. So I'm just thinking perhaps if this is something that is really important to Met Council, which it seems like it is, that this is something that you put into practice and written contractually into the next project going forward.
Well, I believe that prompt payment is something that is a state requirement and it's in the contractual contract and it's being flowed down. I think that's one of the requirements within the contracts, that prompt payment is flowed down.
And APJB's needed.
A
Yeah.
certificate that says, like we talked about.
It's certified that they're.
Yeah, it's certified.
I don't know.
And so that's one of the primary purposes of us coming together and having these discussions is one, to keep track of what's happening in this project, to talk about it globally too, in terms of what we do for next projects, for lessons learned. And as a business process, I can imagine that there isn't a tracking from the day you get the dollar to the day the project closes. And so it would seem interesting that you'd have to recreate something from the day it happened 5 years ago versus pull it together now and have discussion about it, not as a blaming for any individual organization, but to talk about how we're going to keep this moving forward from project to project and where we are now. And to give transparency to the community, which is what we've all agreed to do, regardless of what the contract says. We want to meet the requirements, but we're all responsible for communicating this to the community. And I understand that we want to be a part of a transparent discussion. And so I'm not certain I understand that we would want to single out any DBE to trigger an actual review versus meet the commitment that we're here to support this project overall. And so how do we get to that point in the conversation? This isn't the first conversation. This isn't the first project that this has happened on. And this isn't an unknown concept.
Well, then if it isn't the first one, why wasn't it changed already, is my question. This
I
is,
think
you know,
because we get
especially,
stuck in this conversation.
you know, and I'm sorry to be the, you know, I'll be the negative Nelly here and stuff because of, I mean, and plus where are we at in this project right now? And yes, we've had a couple conversations, but it has been very recent. It wasn't 5 years ago and everything, which was almost mid-project, no. But it's interesting because we have the payment certificate. We have to certify that we paid. Once that is, then we are in contractual compliance with the Met Council's requirements for us. Yes, then it goes further, but again, we're in the final leg for civil of the project. And now we're, you know, yes, we are transparent. We've been very transparent about a lot of things here, but to all of a sudden, and to track things, yes, I understand that. We'd have to have maybe Luke here to talk further about that, but it's also part of why we have subcontracts instead of individual contracts for everybody, is because we have a contract with our subs that when they pay, they are to pay. And that is part of their contract language. So when we hand over our certificates to you guys, it's stating that, yes, it is paid. So to track that trickle down, it's maybe something to add to the system for future. Those dates, a column for those dates that when a sub gets paid, you know, here we pay, then we pay, they get paid. That's something to look at further. But for right now and where we're at stage of the game, without any negative issues, is what I'm talking. There is no finger point. It's a great discussion. This is one of the best. That's why there's an advisory. That's why we have DWAC. You know, but it's just, we're at the stage of the game where here's what we do, you know, and there have been, like, Dan, thank you for bringing, you know, bring up an, you know, give an example or something, but we don't have examples. They get paid. Where we do have examples are, and we all know the fun of change orders, you know, that's where we do have problems as a team, as a whole team, is getting change orders
through the process quicker so that the pay-apps can get through. Pay-apps, once we get paid, they get paid. So that's my last.
As you're kind of visiting this, I was giving some thought to, it's really good to see the information you presented today on the workforce. And we know that some of these discussions happen industry-wide and they've been going on for a long time with each and every project. And so with that, the conversation about how many people of color on the project, how many women on the contract, whether or not they stay on the contract, whether or not they get the journeyman status, whether or not we're meeting the goals, have been long-standing conversations around as one topic in one area. And so having those difficult conversations from project to project and having this kind of environment to come show the data and the numbers has led to some great work I see with you now being able to tell a good story and break down by trades even, and saying that you're willing to present that information even further. And so this is similar to that as well. This is a long-standing conversation. And so how do we have the difficult conversation of having the data in front of us to talk about that? Again, not to blame, but to move us forward.
Right.
So this isn't the conversation in another 2 years or on the next project. And you, in turn, as we're working through it, get to have the same kind of celebration you're seeing in the workforce. How do we get there?
Well, I completely agree with you. And I mean, we are celebrating DBE. We've talked about it because First Light Rail project goal was close to being the same. I think we were at 12% maybe though, right around there for the goal, for the, hold on, Elaine, please.
Which
Thank you.
first project is what I want to know?
The very first light rail project.
Hiawatha Light Rail?
The very first, it was, Hiawatha was the very first one, yes. And I was part of the stations, part of it with Adolphson and Peterson at the time. And we had these wonderful meetings. Quite dynamic compared to these sometimes, maybe sometimes more on the negative side, but it was a learning process for our entire community. And that was one of the reasons why I stayed doing this. But we were nowhere near the goal, and the participation was horrible. The comments from contractor leadership regarding DB participation was horrible. The comment back at that time when estimating teams or representatives for the community would say, why don't we utilize, here's a list of DBE subs that I have for you that are qualified to work on a project. Many times the comment back by not just a general contractor, but a first-tier contractor. Why would I give somebody else work that I can self-perform? Okay, that was then. Okay.
Come a long way.
Today, our question being asked by leadership is, who else do you have to introduce me to that could be a part of our team? Wow, I couldn't believe those questions being asked. You look at the numbers, look at our percentages, we're exceeding the goal. Okay, let's break it down by division. Where are we at with mechanical, electrical, rail, those type of things? Yeah, let's see where their participation is towards that goal. I would love to show that information. When it comes to prompt payment, we do not have an issue on this project at all for prompt payment, which is another blessing, because I have experienced the other side of that with other projects in the past. It isn't a negative piece being seen at all. So the celebration is our percentage of work being done by those DBEs, not the date they received a check. That's my thoughts, my opinion, and I appreciate the time to say it.
Well, I want to provide some historical perspective on this. There was a huge issue on the CCLRT, which was the first green line, the last project, about prompt payment. And Met Council implemented a lot of changes to improve the payments and how they were processed. So I want to give kudos to Met Council on that. The first light rail project was not a Met Council project. It was done by MnDOT, because I was working at MnDOT at the time. So whatever issues happened with that project, if there were any with the prompt payment belong to discussions with MnDOT, not Met Council. As far as prompt payment discussions on this project, this is not the first time it has been discussed. It's been brought up several times throughout the project. So it's not something that's coming at the end of the project. It's been discussed throughout.
It has been discussed, but the ask for the detailed information was just brought forward, which is another additional thing to what is already being done in the tracking of entire processes and part of contract information. That's all. That is what I'm not trying to debate that. I know including and improving processes is a part of DWAC.
Can we talk about that then when we're at in the discussion? Because I'm hearing a mix of it could be available, it may take some effort, but I'm not certain if we're getting to the conversation if we will move in that direction or if we're asking not to have that continue to be discussed and presented for our next meetings. So where are we at on that positioning?
I don't feel like we're contractually obligated to give you that information. We can find that information, hunt that down.
It's in state law. Why are you not contractually?
I know where my money, I know where the JV money goes. We have a certificate that says we paid, here's what came in, here's what out, I know that. I just don't have all the information after that. At my fingertips, right?
I think it's just common sense. Once you pay a vendor, you don't know what the vendor does with that money. And like,
Well, you have
That's
trailing
what I
waivers.
think.
You
You
have
understand what
waivers.
happens with the money from the day the project closes. So I'm hearing the position is that you feel it's not contractually obligated between the contract of you and Metropolitan Council, so you will not provide that information. Is that what I'm hearing? I just want to know where we're, I just want to know where we're at, because if we're not going to get to a decision, I don't want this to just be a conversation that's futile and keeps moving.
What's the negativity of all this, though? This is what I really want to know, you guys. I mean, it's being done and it's being done correct and it's being done great. So I don't understand why we're getting kickback on something that we're doing the right way above and beyond. There's where my question lies. And it's not a negative, a point of finger or anything, but we're moving the needle in the right way on process. And yes, Met Council, wow, what a great job. What a difference. I would have not picked up that phone 5 years ago being offered to oversee the diversity on this project if I didn't think things have already changed in a great way. I want to know why there's such push for something that's already being done and being done the right way. We're tracking percentages, we're tracking dollar value, we're certifying that it's being done. Why that next push when it's I don't, that's the part I don't understand.
That's the crux of the conversation. I think I heard you say something,
Oh,
as you were describing, I think I heard you say something to the effect of, we made good progress around having businesses on the project and the work that they're able to do. So why is there a question of when the check is cut and when they get paid? And we know that's a huge issue and barrier for when the check is cut and when they get paid. And I think that's a part of this discussion. So I think that's the real question here about how do we keep these businesses that are doing such a great job on these projects sustainable and continue to grow and be available for the next projects that come up. And this kind of conversation can help in that regard.
Okay. For APJV, we get a pencil copy approved. We get paid by Met Council. APJV pays their first tier subcontractors in 10 days. And we can, that's a compliance aspect, and we can prove that through compliance. Met Council, they do follow up with the subcontractor, say, have you been paid? They say you paid this. Have you agreed to that payment? I believe that's true, right?
DVE tracker.
For DVs.
For DVs, for not all contracts, but for DVs, they take that extra step and they do that. They certify that they actually got paid. They say you got paid. Did you get paid? Did you get paid within a timely manner? I'm assuming you asked that question. I haven't seen the form.
No, So it goes out in an email asking them, is this the amount you got paid?
Okay.
And that's all it is.
It doesn't ask if you were paid within 10 days. Are there exceptions of not? Because I know B2G asks that question automatically. When you report that, it automatically goes out and says, how you paid it in a timely manner. I know that. So I'm assuming that was done by compliance. So just forgive me on that. But all the ADJOURN pays themselves within 10 days. We have records of when the checks were cut, when the checks were cashed. We do have those records. But as a DB compliance person, that's a financial statement and that's tracked. But I can get that for that when I find out this extra piece of information. And we can look at that through the life of the job. But I think that's a compliance aspect of it. I don't think it's this meeting necessarily. And
this meeting is not about, I think this is the exact kind of meeting, because this meeting is not about compliance.
I know, but that's a compliance issue. And I think that now, only recently have we just started discussing prompt payment, only within the last maybe 5-6 months, in the last 3 meetings. We've always talked about DBs not getting paid. And we've always said, hey, it's not getting approved because of change orders. Because I think London had over 1,400 change orders. We've had a number of change orders. And I think the change orders and getting onto the pencil copy, getting onto the pay app is the main hindrance where you don't have a vehicle payment. And where the DBs are suffering is they're not getting on the pencil copy to get approval for payment. That's the biggest hindrance, and that's what we can't track. And that's the big thing why DBs might be suffering the most. And Met Council has done a good job of improving that process. But yet there's still change orders that have no vehicle payment to pay them. And that forces general contractors, subcontractors to take the risk and pay the DBEs to keep them coming back. And it's taking a risk. And that you're going to get approved by the RE and by the Met Council and everything else to pay those contractors so they can keep them afloat. That's a huge issue. And it could be because of line falls, it could be forced accounts, it could be T&Ms, it could be a lot of different stuff going on. Well, buildings, threatened. It could be a lot of different things, but getting it onto that pay app is the most important, the biggest step in the huge delay. Is that I see, and we'll try and prove it to you as a compliance aspect, but that's the main key why DBs aren't getting paid. That's the biggest hindrance, and it's the change orders. And I don't know what's the dollar value of change orders today, John, on a contract.
I'll have to defer to Nick.
I don't have that number in front of me, but it's, like
500 million?
Brian's contract's over 200 million.
Over 200 million, so we got at least 40 million.
Yeah. I'm having trouble, just so we're all clear, John, on what the problem we're trying to solve is and what information you need in order to try and solve that problem. That's because the information exists. It's just kind of what these guys are saying is it's really easy to get that information. I think it was in the meeting minutes. The easy information to get is where Lunda, LMJV and APJV pay their first year subs. That information is easy to get. But it's once you get down and start looking to who's paying who, at what time those people are getting paid, and if it's a pay when paid contract mechanism, then it gets a little bit more difficult, and then the time could possibly be extended past these 10 days, but we don't know. So to me, I am having difficulty understanding what the problem we're trying to solve is and what information you guys need in order to solve that problem is. Because we do report on DBEs, and this is a DBE meeting, and we report on what those payments are to the DBEs monthly. And so if we're talking about looking at the project as a whole for how we're paying different subcontractors and whether or not it's attainable information. It would be really difficult to get once you get past 2 and 3 down. So, it's not impossible. And if there's certain subcontracts that you guys want to select and audit, that's probably the best way to do this. But if you're looking to obtain all the invoices and all of the payments that have occurred on a $1 billion project, that's a lot of paper. And then who's gonna go through that? Because I can request it from Brian, and he's gonna give me a data dump of PDFs. And, well, which is what I would do if this was coming. It's like, here's all the information, good luck, you know? Because it exists, but like, they don't have to format it for us. They don't have to show us how to, you know, get from A to B. But, you know, this kind of goes back to like, we do track for DBEs. That is a requirement within the contract. They certify that they're paying their subcontractors promptly. We believe that that is happening because we haven't heard an issue. And when we do hear issues, we address it, right? And so I'm trying to figure out what the problem is and how we can help.
Couldn't you sample a percentage of them, and then based on the results of the percentage sample, determine if you want to go further? That way you could, that will be more timely.
It would be, yeah, I think that would be a way to try and help with the problem. But like I said, I'm struggling to understand the problem.
So one thing that, just looking at this civil DBE progress report, not all DBEs are under Lunda. Some are subs to other contractors that are not DBE. So that's one reason I think that the council would want to know when those second tier DBEs are getting paid.
Well, the prompt payments in the subcontract will be paid within 10 days.
She said they don't have.
Well, it's
Pay when it get paid.
Yeah.
They don't
That's
have
what-
10
that's what
days.
I'm saying.
That's a pay when paid, yeah, that's a pay when paid, and then the prompt payment with that within 10 days.
Yeah.
And it's a flow down to all the subs.
Exactly.
Right, and I
I mean, our
think that
certificate is guaranteeing.
in the spirit of the conversation is how do we improve things so that further projects down the road don't have any issues with prompt payment? And I'm thinking that like, all right, if you don't know when your second tier or third tier or fourth tier subs are getting paid, and there is no way to easily track that, then that might be something that this committee can come together to, like, how do we do that so that this doesn't happen again? Or how do we improve that so that we can get that information much more easily?
Have the first tier contractor, first tier subcontractor sign that exact same pay certificate that we signed. And turn it into the council. There you go. We have to certify that we paid within our 10 days. Have them sign a certificate and submit.
Yeah.
Could be an e-file. There you go.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just giving us one of many probably solutions, but there's an idea. But, you know, moving forward on this project, I don't know what we need to be doing.
I mean, in that form in itself, it's saying that if there are any disputed payments, then you would report that. So Mike, right?
Yeah.
You know, that form in itself, you would then write in like, you know, construction firm A did not get paid because they were missing this particular item, right? So.
I think they do that.
Yeah.
I think the APJV does that.
Yeah. Are the subs doing that, or, you know, do you know when your subs?
We collect lower tier waivers and the trailing waivers that we get from our subcontractors in order to pay them. So when they do a pay app and they have to submit all the waivers for all the lower tier subs and suppliers, technically those waivers are dated prior to when they get the check. I mean, some people, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if it's a problem. I don't think it's a problem. I haven't heard anything otherwise. It hasn't been brought to our attention that it's a problem. You know, there's, you know, if you want to audit a few and say, hey, this is not working, then I think that's on an individual basis. But I have not heard for APJV's perspective that it's been a problem. It has not been brought to our attention.
Yeah, and I think in the spirit of the program in itself, we also have some recent rule changes for the DBE program that we have to be more proactive in our monitoring.
There's been a lot of changes recently.
Yes. But, you know, this conversation is, I think, very helpful for that type of thing, is how can we be more proactive from the contractor side, from the government side in doing this so that we can, make sure all contractors being paid promptly. And, that's part of why I think this conversation is important. And it's not, so we're not saying, produce everything where we're asking for it. Do you have that? And then, I think last time we were here, LMJ was like, oh yeah, we can easily pull that together. So great. So we were like, okay, if you can easily pull that together, let's just at least have that to see,
Can you be specific on what you would like to see?
I think if the first tier subs are there, then great. Show that information.
You would like to see one pay application and a first tier sub payment to them, just a receipt or like an invoice?
I would say if it's first tier, if you can pull that from your accounting, when you cut that check to your first tier subs, that would be something that shows and helps us like finish that chart that we're doing.
Okay.
And that would help out. And if you can ask your subs to provide any information to you and those that are responsive, that would also help us shed light in this area that nobody seems to know about. So I think that would be the two things that we can probably do to shed some light on this.
Okay. One sub or all first tier subs?
All first tier subs.
And you just want to see the date in which they were paid from a previous pay application. Specifics matter, sorry.
It's a lot of work.
Is that what I'm hearing? So we could take last month's pay application, we can say council paid LMJV on this date and LMJV paid these first year subs on these dates, boom, 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 boom. And that's the information you're looking for?
I don't think one pay app would suffice. I think if, we're looking at it, we can go back maybe past 20 pay apps. And that would be something that would be able to show, all right, council paid us this date. We paid first tier subs on this date. And that would help us understand and be able to verify that. And then if any other subcontractors are able to respond to that, then I think that
Well,
that
how
also
about
helps
if we do
out.
one pay app, we take a look at it, and then we review with this information, what we're asking, before we do 20. Let's make sure that we agree upon a format, and let's agree about this is what we're looking at. We come back and say, okay, we do a pay app, this is who we listed on the pay app, this is, the subcontractors are on it, this is the information that you want, is this the information that you want, yes, no? And if you want to go further than that, it's going to take time and effort. It's beside my skill set. That's other people involved, so it's not something I can easily dig up. So, but if this is something that you want, that it's in a format, and this is what we're looking for, we can track it, this and going forward. If you want to go back and do that, and you can set up a meeting with APJB and we'll go through it.
Yeah, I think we can try out one and then, start with one.
That's really helpful. What I'm hearing is start there and then look at, is this what we're talking about?
Right.
And then clarify where we're going with it. And then if we need any additional, resolve it then and then move forward.
So it's not going back, pointing fingers, how do we make it better for the future?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what I'm hearing?
With what we're working with and yes. And all to be a part of that collectively and contributing to that.
Yeah, we do.
If they're required to pay them within 10 days, what are we gonna find out that they paid them within 10 days?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
There'll be some comfort.
Including your.
There'll be checking boxes.
We gotta find out whether or not there's a weekend in the 10 days. How can we get
Well, the weekends is the 10 days, so the weekend is included in the 10 days.
And so you're also asking for that one pay app to go to at least make a request for that second and third tier so that if we are able to get that information, we have a fuller picture of where we're going for the additional ones.
I will also let you know in regards to that, because I understand what you're asking.
Our
think I understand.
subcontractors are gonna say, where in my contract am I required to do this? I will guarantee, that's the negative we will get.
I think it's reasonable to say like, gee, on this specific one, can you give me the date, right? And
Yeah,
like,
like we said, if we're using one as an example to be able
But
to
you
say,
go-
okay, moving
If
forward.
start getting magnitudes beyond that, they're gonna be like, that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Why should I do it? That's
Or
why
like
I
the
wasn't
one
trying
in
to,
pay app.
my previous comment, I wasn't trying to single anybody out that may have had an issue. I was trying to say like, you need an instance of
Yeah.
either a random, pull somebody's name out of a hat. Right? Like this,
That's, yeah,
Mhm.
like one tier sub, like if you went and talked to, if Egan has a bulk of like subcontractors that work for him, or Railworks, or whoever, or Londa Stations, maybe you keep it in the family.
Nice.
No, I don't know. You'd select one first tier sub and then go all the way down, and then,
Because I think, I mean, for us, it's not as big as Lunda.
you got a lot of subs too.
No, but not DB subs.
That's true.
Well, you know, Myers, the only one with second tier DB subs.
We're only talking DBE or are we talking everyone?
Yeah, that's the
Well,
question.
some of our second.
That'd be fun. That's my
We kind of
question.
teetered back and forth on that
Yeah,
through the
but
whole
what are we,
conversation.
yeah, what are we looking for just DBE? Because that's been the focus of the meeting for the whole time. We're looking for DBEs, focusing on
I
DBEs.
think my focus is just on DBEs right now.
Except for here's the thing. I disagree because there are non-DBE subs that have DBEs working
Right, but that would
under them.
include DBEs, that would include DBEs, right? That's all inclusive.
Isn't the
Doesn't
DBE
program
list is
track
all inclusive,
that?
correct?
Yeah.
It's everybody's DBEs?
All the DBEs.
Yeah.
Anything that relates to DBEs, whether second, third tier, or fourth.
I think you already have that information.
Is the only, so that going to what Brian's saying is the only information missing from the DVE tracker is when they were paid the previous month.
I think that's.
Is that the only piece of information we're looking for?
Say it again, Nick.
So like we get these DVE trackers, these progress reports that talk about when DVEs are paid. Is the only information like when they were paid the previous month? Is that the only thing that we're missing? And can
Yeah,
that be added to CMS? And
can that be added to CMS?
and that would be solving your problem for future projects. With regards to DVEs, we've had this conversation before. Prompt payment is more than just a DVE problem, right? It's an all subcontractor problem. And, for future contracts, if you really want to get into prompt payment, the CMS program needs to be expanded for all subcontractors. And then adding a date toggle in there. So then now you know the previous month, exactly when people are being paid for the invoicing, and then your problem is solved. But I don't, I'm still struggling with this.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, if the contractors are supplying that information, then that would be something that would help. I don't know if because that would take verifying, right? We would have to call the contractors or subcontractors because some of these DVEs are like second or third tier. And a lot of times from what I'm hearing is the prime only has a direct relationship with their first tier. And they're only able to verify with their first tier. So they're not able to verify with any DVE subs that are second, third, fourth tier down. So when we're asking for them to supply that information, for those first tier, we're gonna get an answer. For anybody else below that, it's gonna be a question mark.
Want to bring this back to the next committee meeting? And the committee's gonna spend more time talking about this?
No, I think Mike made a proposal that, we can start off with one and go from there. And I think we were just gonna focus on DVEs.
And it's my understanding there's a meeting that comes up at the end of this month where there's more opportunity.
No, I think the council has a separate meeting with LMJV to talk about DVE stuff.
that's not part of this.
No, it's not a part of this directly.
So it sounds like we've got some movement. Are there any conversation, any additions to the conversation, or we're ready to move on? Thank you, everybody. Thank you for contributing and hanging on in this one. And so we come down to, we just got a few more minutes for our time together here today. And so this is the opportunity for any announcements or any information that you want to share out.
Register for Rosie's Rallies before it sells out, even though it's free.
Building Strong Communities is entering our second week, or in our second week of training. We have a statewide cohort of 131 people, give or take right now. So fully registered. We'll do an analysis on the breakout of everybody, but I just asked for an analysis on zip codes where we're tracking people from, but looks like we're gonna have a great cohort. A lot of enthusiasm, so it's been a lot of fun, busy. But yeah, 131 right now, and we'll see how that all shakes out here tomorrow when I get the attendance analysis to see who's stuck with it, and who's hanging in there. But I think we're gonna have a fairly, I think we'll go through with at least 125. So looking forward to seeing how. May 2nd is the graduation, so it's coming up pretty quick. Already 2 weeks in, and snow will be melted in about 3 weeks. So
There's no snow to melt.
After that, it's graduation.
Nicole, great.
Have you seen more participants from greater Minnesota?
We're in the Duluth Iron Range area and also in the Mankato Rochester area. So
Third year, right? Third year being Greater Minnesota?
yes,
Yeah.
third year. So I believe we have 11 in the Duluth Iron Range area that are participating right now with our going through True North Goodwill, formerly SOAR Career Solutions, is representing us up there as far as our advocate. And then Workforce Development Inc. in the Rochester area. That's where I came from just before I came here. So yeah, there's great interest, and we have great projects in both areas, Destination Medical Center and all the other work that's around that area in Rochester, and some work over towards the Mankato area, and then you get up into Duluth and Iron Range, and you get the blasting project that's coming up, bridge coming up, and Can of Worms was last year, so they're finishing up that kind of work. So yeah. Looks really good.
Good to hear. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Anyone else? Hearing none, Elaine? This is just the time for public comment if we had anyone signed up. And
There are none.
since we don't, I want to bring this meeting to a close. Our next meeting will be on April 24th, and it will be virtual. And so we'll stay connected via our construction updates, social media, and other project websites in between then. And do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make the motion.
With a second? It's adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Too long. I need. Come to Roses and Robbie's.